Welcome to the Cold War series. This time we're talking about De Gaulle. So, he became the outstanding French patriot, soldier, and statesman of the 1900s. He led French resistance against Germany in World War II and restored order in France after the war. He guided the formation of France's Fifth Republic in 1958 and served as its president until his resignation in 1969. As President de Gaulle led his country through a difficult period in which France granted independence to Algeria and other overseas territories. He fashioned a new role for France in Europe based on close association with a former enemy, Germany. His leadership restored political and economic stability and again made France one of Europe's leading powers. De Gaulle provided France with a successful constitution, political system, and foreign policy. De Gaulle became a symbol of France throughout the world. Even his name suggested the ancient Roman name for an area that is now mainly France, that is Gaul. An imposing figure, 6 feet and 4 inches, so 193 centimeters, tall, de Gaulle was stern and aloof. Some people thought him stubborn and arrogant, but de Gaulle had a deep love for France, and he believed that it was his destiny to make France a leader in world affairs. He was also the leader of the Free French. After the Germans invaded France in May 1940, de Gaulle was put in charge of one of France's 4 armored divisions. He became Undersecretary for War in June, but just days later, on June 22nd, France surrendered to Germany. De Gaulle, then a general, escaped to London. He refused to accept the surrender, nor would he recognize the authority of Marshal Henri-Philippe Pétain, his former regimental commander and patron, who headed the Vichy government that cooperated with the Germans. For this, a French military court sentenced de Gaulle to death. De Gaulle declared that France had lost the battle but not the war. He broadcast such messages to France as, "Whatever happens, the flame of French resistance must not and shall not go out." Throughout the war, his broadcasts stirred French patriotism and kept French resistance alive. De Gaulle organized the Free French forces in the United Kingdom and in some of the French colonies. In September 1941, he became president of the French National Committee in London. Although de Gaulle at times faced opposition from British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt, he emerged as the leader of France's provisional government. De Gaulle triumphantly entered Paris with the Allies in August 1944. He was a peacetime leader. De Gaulle got the machinery of government working again during the next 14 months. But France's left-wing parties did not support him, and he resigned in January 1946. He bitterly opposed the Constitution of 1946 because it did not provide a strong executive power. In 1947, he organized a new political movement, the Rally of the French People, that he hoped would allow him to return to power. But it lost strength after the elections of 1951. De Gaulle retired to his country, home to write his memoirs. He watched as the political situation in France grew worse, hoping for another chance to lead. The Fifth Republic. Finally, in May 1958, the call came. France stood on the verge of a civil war. Dissatisfied French officers, afraid that they would lose the government's support against the Algerian rebels, seized the powers in the Algiers. De Gaulle emerged as the best hope to prevent domestic chaos. In June, he accepted President René Coty's request to form a government, but on condition that he will have full powers for 6 months. De Gaulle had a new constitution drawn up that established the Fifth Republic. It provided broad powers for the president, who was to be elected for 7 years by an electoral college of 80,000 public officials. French voters approved the plan, and the electoral college chose de Gaulle as president in December 1958. As president, de Gaulle acted with firmness. After another revolt in Algeria in 1960, he arrested French officers there who had formerly supported him. He negotiated with Algerian nationalist leaders for a ceasefire agreement. The agreement they reached in March 1962 ended more than 7 years of bloody war. At de Gaulle's urging, the French people voted almost 10-1 in April 1962 for Algerian independence. De Gaulle proposed a plan to elect future presidents by direct popular vote. The French Assembly opposed the plan and passed a vote of no confidence in his government in October 1962. But de Gaulle dissolved the Assembly and held a referendum, that is, a vote of the people, on direct elections. Voters approved de Gaulle's proposal and elected a new assembly that supported the plan. In 1963, de Gaulle and Chancellor Konrad Adenauer of West Germany signed a treaty providing for political, scientific, cultural, and military cooperation. At the same time, de Gaulle blocked the United Kingdom's entry into the European Economic Community, the EEC, a forerunner of the European Union. In 1964, France became the first Western power to recognize a communist China. So, furthermore, de Gaulle narrowly won a second 7-year term as president in 1965. In 1966, he decided to withdraw French forces from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and to remove NATO headquarters from France. In 1967, de Gaulle again blocked the entry of the British into the EEC. He also created an independent nuclear strike force and criticized U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. In 1968, French students and workers staged strikes and demonstrations. The economy suffered from inflation and currency problems, but de Gaulle maintained popular support. In 1969, however, his proposals for constitutional changes were defeated in a referendum, and he resigned. De Gaulle died on November 9, 1970, after suffering a heart attack. Thank you for listening.